Hi, this is Father McCaffrey. I'm with the Archdiocese of Oklahoma City, and I thank you for spending these few minutes to take a look at this presentation about natural family planning. I have traveled the world quite a bit, and I've met many people, and I try to put forth this beautiful message of natural family planning and the Humanae Vitae. I have found that it is very, very warmly received by the people and by pastors. The presentation is basically this. I come to the parish with the physician and usually with a user couple. And on the weekend masses, I will speak about natural family planning. I'll speak about the Humanae Vitae using the liturgy of the Word and the teachings of the Church. And I think you'll find yourself, if you watch the entire presentation, how warmly the people do receive it. Then in the afternoon, we have a seminar. And we have one of our physicians speak at this, giving an updated, efficient method of natural family planning. Also, a user couple does the same, helps to show how this enhances and strengthens married life. So I would ask you to sit back, take a good look at it, and I'll be back a little bit later to say a little more. Thank you very, very much. Good afternoon, and thank you very, very much. The subject I'll be speaking about is a rather sensitive subject, so I hope you'll still be clapping. I normally have an automobile running outside with a driver in it in case you stone me to death, or have a shield here in case you throw rocks at me. But bear with me, I think it's an important message that we all need to hear. I'm coming from Oklahoma City, but you can tell, I'm sure, that I'm a New Yorker by birth. And a little about myself, ordained about 39 years ago, and my first assignment was to go to Pakistan. That's a country over there in India. And I spent 8 years there working among the Muslim people. And then during the Vietnam crisis, they were very short of army chaplains. They were down 50%, and I felt I had an obligation to be there with the troops. So in '68, I joined the Army as a chaplain, went over to Vietnam, and stayed in the Army for over 20 years. In my retirement, I go around the country trying to promote the message of natural family planning in conjunction with the family life movement and helping couples to live a Christian life and a happy life. So that's what we're speaking about today. And this afternoon at 2 o'clock there will be a seminar here to which all of you are invited. There'll be child care, and I'll have a little more to say about that in a few moments. In the reading today, it mentions in St. John how we are children of God. And one day we are going to be with God, hopefully, if we live a good, holy life, and we're going to live in His light, and we're going to become like God. It's a great mystery, the way we will be transformed at the end of our life, if we are called to be with the Lord for all eternity. And after all, isn't that why you're at Mass here this morning? Isn't that why I'm here? Because we want to be saints. We want to be holy. We want to show God that our life is a loyal life, and we want to keep His commandments so that we will be worthy of the divine kingdom, that we will be worthy of becoming children of the light. We come here to listen to the Scriptures, the homily, to put our heart on the altar at the consecration, and then to eat and drink the body and blood of the Lord so that we'll be strong and faithful and witnesses to Christ Jesus and become, as they say, holy saints. But there is one thing, and there are many things, I suppose, but there's one thing that's taking us away from the Good Shepherd. You know, like a shepherd has sheep that like to go into other pastures and get mixed up in activities and get themselves in trouble. And the Good Shepherd, the Lord, through His priest and His church, has to reach out to the people and say, that's not the way to go. I want you to come back home. And he takes the little sheep and he puts it on his shoulders and he brings it back to the fold. Well, if there's one thing that's taking us sheep away from the Lord today, it's this sin of contraception, where we put a barrier between the lovemaking that God wants people to enjoy in the married life and closing it to the life-giving that the Lord wishes to bring forth from this if he chooses to do it. And this is something that's been going on, and it's rampant in our Catholic community today. There's a figure out there that 80 to 90% of our Catholics are contracepting, or they're sterilized. Now, these are very, very serious offenses against God. This is not a negotiable subject. This is not some thing that we can say, well, that's the opinion of the church. That's the opinion. I don't have to follow that. Oh, yes, we do. And if we don't follow the teachings of the church, our eternal salvation is jeopardized. Because when we contracept, we offend against the sixth commandment. When we have ourselves neutered and destroy the powers of procreation in order that we will have no more children, we break the fifth commandment. Fifth commandment, you know, has to do with thou shalt not kill. You say, what has this got to do with thou shalt not kill? Well, you may not mutilate your body. You may not tear off your ear and pluck out your eye. You're supposed to take care of your body. And if you go ahead and you chop up those beautiful powers of procreation in a selfish way, you offend that fifth commandment. So we're not talking about a Mickey Mouse issue. We're talking about an issue that has to do with our eternal salvation. And if we're not keeping the commandments, then how in the name of goodness can we say we love the Lord? He says, if you love me, you'll keep my commandments. Put up or shut up. Don't give me a lot of talk. If you love me, you'll keep my commandments. Now, if we're breaking those commandments, and the figure is 80 to 90%, then if you follow that to a logical consequence, we have a church today full of spiritual midgets. How are we going to rise up to the stature of Jesus Christ if we're not even keeping the commandments? We're not even good followers of Moses. How can we be followers of Jesus? So don't you think from time to time this should be put out before our good people? I'm not afraid to put this out before you, because I know you're capable of being holy people. And for you not to hear this is to jeopardize and stunt your Christian life. This is killing our spiritual life today among our people. When we commit these type of sins, we don't rise up to the resurrected Christ. We begin to lose our faith. And that's what's happening all through our nation today. Many of our Catholics losing their faith, and they don't know why. One of the big reasons is this horrible sin of contraception. It's eating away at the guts of our Catholic people. A bishop told me not long ago, he said, Father, I'm so happy you're going into this work, because this contraception is a cancer that's eating the very guts out of our holy church. And I'm convinced of that. I travel all through this United States. I'm convinced of this. As our churches become empty. Here's another thing in the marriage life. This contraception has done great damage to married couples, perhaps unbeknown to themselves, but it has been like a cancer that eats away at the marriage relationship. Because when people contracept, a coldness sets in. They refuse to mutually give themselves to each other. They're holding back. They're using each other. There is a falsification in this union, and it's there. Do you realize we're coming up to 60% now divorce rate? Pill has been here for 30 years, and the divorce rate now is climbing up into 60%. When are we going to wake up and smell the coffee? This is also contributes to the infidelity that we see today in married life. Another thing that's worth talking about just for a minute is the fact of the church. Look at the vocation situation today. I go around and I see bishops closing churches down. Well, one of the big reasons is the priests are not there anymore. They're getting old. I think the average age of the priest today is something like 60, 61. These bishops are presiding over burial societies when it comes to the priest today. We've got one foot in the grave. Well, how long do you think this is going to go on? Where are our sisters? Where are our religious? You don't find women going into the religious life anymore. The sisters that used to teach me and you, many of you, where are they? Let me tell you something. Contraception is a very selfish situation. It does not breed the generous children that will give themselves to Christ in the consecrated life or in the priestly life. It isn't going to happen. In general, it isn't going to happen. Now, for 30 years, we Catholics have been contracepting and contracepting and contracepting. Now is payback time. This is payback time. And you're going to find over the years more and more churches closing down, empty pews, our school system not teaching our children anymore the faith because we don't have the teachers. And the faith itself is beginning to disintegrate. It's this, to a large extent, not the only thing, it's this horrible sin of contraception that's eaten away at our people like a poison. And so I think it's worth time to time saying a few words of encouragement, and I'm not condemning anyone. I'm not condemning anyone. People say, well, you priests have never preached this. And maybe there's some truth in that. Or the world that we live in today is it's a very difficult world. What do you want us to have all the children in the world that we can have? No, the church says that responsible parenthood may require that we space our children. But we don't have to resort to a sinful practice of contraception. There's a whole new breakthrough that's come, and that's the ovulation method. There's new methods of natural family planning out there that are as effective as any contraceptive. And many of our Catholics don't know anything about it. They're ignorant about it. And so this afternoon at 2 o'clock, there's going to be a physician here, Dr. Martha Garza. She is a gynecologist, obstetrician, an endocrinologist, very successful physician that's here now from San Antonio, Texas. And she's going to give a fine, full-blown presentation of this so that you see the medical side of it. You may want to ask a few questions. You might want to ask me about the theology of it. There'll be some witness couples there to open your mind up to see this beautiful teaching and how it's in harmony with what the Lord wants us to do. The God that gave us the 10 Commandments and the God that gave us the laws of medicine and chemistry and physics is the one God. There's not two different gods. Good religion is good medicine. Good medicine is good religion. And women should not have to be subjected to these pills and turned into chemistry sets. Women should be proud of their fertility. Children are not a disease. We've bought into this culture of death today, and it's so sad and pathetic. For goodness sakes, if we Catholics could rise up and defend the principles of our faith and live the principles of our faith, we could turn this whole thing around and change our nation. So this afternoon, brothers and sisters, even though you may be very, very busy, for goodness sakes, make every effort to be here at 2 o'clock. And you older people, grandmothers and grandfathers may say, well, listen, I've raised my family I don't have much to do with this anymore. Yes, you do, Grandma and Grandpa. Yes, you do. Because you are mentors of your children. And if you know the teaching, and if you know the medical side of this, you can be a mentor, a teacher to your children, to spare them the grief that many people have gone through over these last 30 years. You could be a great witness to your children. So you older high school youngsters, you young couples, you older people, the church needs you to be defenders of the faith, to be children of the light, children of the resurrection. You are capable of becoming saints. And when we don't give you the full teaching of the church, it's a false compassion. Because you need to hear the entire gospel of Jesus Christ and the picking up of the cross. And let me congratulate you people of large families. Large families are special blessings. The great saints come from large families. And I salute you as the Pope does and the Church does. But it also recognizes there may be a time to space a family because of certain serious matters and certain serious things. And this beautiful method of natural family planning is highly effective, as effective as any contraceptive. And for goodness sakes, here's a beautiful opportunity for you to update your Catholic faith and to learn about these methods so that you can live it and proclaim it to the world, because the church needs you today as ever before. I thank you for your rapt attention. And we'll be here at 2 o'clock, and Dr. Garza will be here, and I do look forward to seeing as many of you as possible. God love you and bless you all the days of your life. Thank you. Thank you.
Now, Father made my conversion sound like worse than Mary Magdalene's. And I figured that if Mary Magdalene and St. Paul can be saints, then any of us can. I don't think I've killed anybody that I know of. I have to be careful because there's some attorneys here in the audience. But I really feel that if those two can be saints, any of us can. And I don't mean to condemn anyone or to hurt anybody's feelings here who is either contracepted or had a tubal ligation or a vasectomy or an abortion. Because I have, praise God, I've never done an abortion in my life, but I have certainly contracepted in my married life, and I've also handed out contraceptives for the first 5-6 years of my practice, not including fellowship and residency training, and also done hundreds of tubal ligations. Don't do vasectomies as an OBGYN, but certainly referred for them. So I don't mean to condemn or point the fingers. If I'm pointing the fingers to anyone, I'm pointing them at myself. Very briefly, about 3 years ago, I had the opportunity to go to the Holy Lands on a pilgrimage, and I went there because I was really at the end of my rope. For several reasons. Medically, I was very frustrated with medicine. Medicine in the United States is not going anywhere good right now. I was very frustrated, and I didn't know why, but for the first 5 years, 6 years of my practice, driving into work every day, I hated going into work. And I really didn't know why. I wasn't depressed. My child and I were very happy. I really couldn't figure it out. I had gone for some spiritual counseling, and I just couldn't figure it out. So anyway, I went over there, and somewhere in the trip, had the good fortune to make a confession with our spiritual director, who's Bishop Galante. He's now bishop in Beaumont, Texas. And I talked about the things that I was doing as a reproductive endocrinologist. We do the ZIFT. I did the ZIFT, the GIFT, the IVF, all these type of things, plus contraception in my practice. And he was very gentle. I really don't even remember him saying, you shouldn't be doing this. I don't think he did. He was very, very gentle. So gentle I can't remember what he said to me. But the graces that came afterwards, I realized, I remember that one thing that he told me is, Marty, I believe You want to be a good Catholic. It's just how deep are you willing to make that commitment to Christ? And that's the only thing I remember from that confession of what he told me. And I walked away, and as time went on, and I realized I wanted to be just as deep in my commitment as I could. I don't want to be a little saint, I want to be a big saint. So anyway, to make a long story short, at the time when I came back from the Holy Lands, I was presenting my boards, my oral boards in OBGYN, and it was a really difficult time to change my practice away from contraception to natural family planning. I didn't know at the time natural family planning existed. Cradle Catholic, Catholic training all my life. Through Catholic University, I went to a very secular medical school, unfortunately, but I didn't know natural family planning existed. So somewhere right before my boards, a friend of mine handed me a tape, and she told me, I think you might be interested in this. So one night I was resting from studying till 2 or 3 in the morning every day, and I plugged it in, and it was from the Pope Paul VI Institute, that, as many of you know, is a Creighton model system of natural family planning, and they presented natural family planning more probably briefer than what I'm going to present it here. It was on Jonette Bankovich, the Abundant Lives program. I couldn't believe it. I could not believe it, that this exists, this works well, it's extremely effective, and I never knew it existed. And here I am, a reproductive endocrinologist. So then the turmoil started all before my boards, and I finally made a pact with God, and I said, look, God, I really can't do this right now because I have to pass these boards, but if you'll be with me on my boards, if I pass this test, I promise you I will do this in my life and my career for my patients. So, make a long story short, I passed my boards, and on the way home, on the airplane from Chicago, I remember saying, okay, God, I'm yours. And when I got home, you believe it or not, in my home, I was flipping through the mail at 2 in the morning, and there was a package from some nuns who are my patients in San Antonio, some Carmelite nuns, cloister Carmelites. And they had sent me some information on natural family planning, and they had said, Dr. Garza, I think we really need for you to get interested in this. I have two brothers, and the dream has always been to be a reproductive endocrinologist and fertility specialist in San Antonio. We opened an IVF and fertility clinic, and with the loans that were necessary to do that, we all did that. And when I approached my oldest brother and I said, I can't do this anymore. We are the Catholic group in San Antonio. We have a very good name thanks to my father, who's been in practice as old as I am, 43 years. I said, I really don't feel comfortable doing this. I think we need to step back. And he said, well, you're going to throw away your practice, and I'm not going to sit by and watch you. And he said, if you're not going to do reproductive endocrine work, you really shouldn't be doing contraception. And I looked at him and I said, Joe, you're right. I'm not. And I was really very frightened when I decided I'm not going to do this anymore, and it was just one day to the other. And I saw my practice, my income really plummet for about 3 or 4 months, and I was very scared. And I was just praying, Lord, just let me make enough to make my salaries of my staff and to keep my daughter in school. And we did it. And I can tell you, and I don't want to brag, but that year was the best of my practice, and it hasn't dropped since. So if there's any OBGYNs or family practitioners here in the audience, we can do it.
I've been a Catholic all my life, but I was baptized a Catholic, but I'm a fairly recent convert to natural family planning, and I'll have to tell you why, because there's really no excuse for that in my case. I was blessed with 20 years plus of Catholic education, so I always had at my disposal the truth, but I found it too easy with all that good education to intellectualize rather than personalize it and set sexuality and issues concerning sexuality kind of off to the side, as though you can be a good person, a good Christian, or a good Catholic without coming to grips with these vitally important issues. And I'm telling you this because I think it's kind of important to understand, at least for me, how philosophically you come to the decision that natural family planning is the right thing to do. Because if you can't come to that decision and make that personal commitment, as Father was saying, it's really, I think, almost impossible, if not impossible, to do. And for me, it was a matter of finding out that the false promise that we get from contemporary society that sexuality without spirituality can work and make us complete and make us happy It is, in fact, just that, a false promise. And when I was younger, it was kind of like St. Augustine before he became a saint in his restless days, where he said, give me chastity, but not yet. I mean, I want to be a good person, but I don't want to give up all the fun things. But you come to realize that, in fact, there is a void in sexuality without it being a part of your spiritual life and integrated into your spiritual life. That's why the truly saintly, more mature St. Augustine said in prayer, thou made us for thyself, and we are restless until we rest in thee. And that's why I came to find that without natural family planning and handling sexual issues the way God intended for us, that we'll never feel complete and feel happy with this. And natural family planning forces you to be more considerate of each other and to work together and to live our life the way I firmly believe in the way the Church teaches us we're supposed to. And it's not always easy, but as you know, nothing in life that's worth having is easy. In order to be, we're not called to be, I think, super Catholics, just true Catholics. And I want to share with you a little example I was thinking of this morning about it, which is a true story where Barbara and our little boy, Joey, asked her recently, or told her, I want to be an astronaut. And she said, well, Joey, that's great, but you know, it involves a lot of work. You're going to have to study. You're going to have to go to school. It's a lot of effort. And he looked at her kind of puzzled and said, I meant for Halloween. And that's a true story, but in thinking about it and how it applies here, too often we dress up, you know, for church. We go to church every Sundays, maybe confession once a year, maybe, you know, we act like Catholics. We call ourselves good sons and daughters of the church, but we're not really willing, able to do, or we're able, but not willing to do the work it takes to be good Catholics. And the little boy just wanted to act like an astronaut once a year. We have to, in fact, go through everything it takes to be true Catholics. And so how do we go about that? I found in trying to struggle through it, and please don't take my words as if I'm setting myself up as the great example here. I'm just struggling like everybody else. I certainly don't pretend to have all the answers or to be any kind of a saint. I'm just a poor schmuck like the rest of us who is trying to, one, find the truth and then live our life according to it with the Church's help.
Just briefly, I'm going to add a few words. My experience is a little bit different. I'm the youngest of 7 children. My mom was an old rhythm method person and struggled with it, but was faithful to the teaching of the Church and imparted that on me. I have 5 older sisters, and all of them, from the onset of their marriages, practiced natural family planning. And I was fortunate and blessed to see this wonderful example of their marriages, their families, their children, designed by God, and the blessings that they had. In a sense, I didn't feel that I really had any other choice but to follow this. Just to let you know where I'm coming from, I imagine the questions that you want to know is, does it work, and how does it benefit you, and what are the difficulties with it? I can say, you know, from our experience, we have 3 children. I know the doctor spoke of a 98, 99% effective rate. We've had 100% effective rate. We've planned all our children. We haven't had any surprise pregnancies, and we've had great success in planning the ones that we wanted immediately. So this has been an obvious advantage for us. In terms of our marriage, you know, we've grown less selfish. It's a way of looking at each other differently and your sexuality differently. And this has been, you know, through communicating with each other. It's recognizing that my husband's going through a difficult time and trying to ease that for him. Maybe, you know, making a special dinner or trying to think of other activities. So I'm putting I'm putting him first and trying to help him through a difficult time, and him putting down his feelings and recognizing the greater good. You know, I can't speak enough about the blessings of that and how you grow together and mature. I can also say that in general, natural family planning enhances your sexuality. I think everybody would recognize that human beings want what they can't have. And I know a lot of people who don't do NFP, they contracept in their marriages, and they lose desire for each other. And I don't know any NFP couples that have this problem. I'd have to say probably the biggest benefit is spiritually. We become open to God's will in our life, and we can see how that will transform us individually and as a couple. And it forces us to be closer to God.
Well, thank you again for watching. I hope that you have found the video useful, and perhaps it will help you in promoting natural family planning. Please remember, too, that if I can be of any assistance to you, the only thing you need to do is give me a ring or write to me, and you can be sure of any help that I can possibly give. In the meantime, God bless the great work you do for Him, and the Lord be with you always.